Hello everyone, I am back with another video. Today going to be talking about an area of games that really isn't covered very often here in the gaming community, and that's licensed games. Now, everyone knows about DuckTales, The Lion King, Aladdin, and even GoldenEye on the N64, but fast forward a few console generations and there's actually a lot of really terrific gaming experiences based on popular movie franchises and TV shows and things of that nature that I just really feel are either overlooked or just not talked about enough. And it's one of my passions of gaming. I have so many licensed games, it's borderline ridiculous. And I just wanted to talk about a few of those, showcase them, and if you haven't played them, I'd strongly encourage you to. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of my favorite licensed games. Do you ever find yourself, I don't know, sitting around just staring at a crazy taxi cab, thinking to yourself, man, how amazing would it be if I could play that game as a Simpsons character? Yeah, neither did anyone else, but they made a game basically doing just that with The Simpsons Road Rage. Now, I distinctly remember getting The Simpsons Road Rage on the PlayStation 2 for my birthday way back when, shortly after its release. And I also remember my best friend refusing to give up the controller at my birthday party to play Ghost in the Graveyard with us because he was so glued to the screen. But I digress. The Simpsons Road Rage has just about everything you could want from a crazy taxi game with the Simpsons skin over it. You've got the original cast voicing the characters, multiple areas to play in, and a borderline absurd number of different drivers to choose from and unlock. I mean, you can even play as Apu, Snake, and Groundskeeper Willie, which is pretty ridiculous, but really adds to the experience in my opinion. I'll be the first to admit, the game definitely does not look very great, and at best looks like a bunch of lumped together Play-Doh, but I really don't think that ever really detracts from the experience, and this is a game that to this day I still just love to pick up and play in short bursts, because it is essentially exactly what I explained in the beginning of the video, that being a Crazy Taxi clone. So if you've never played The Simpsons Road Rage, do yourself a favor, pick up this game and play it. It is so much fun.
Alright, take me to the tattoo parlor, dude.
Damn, great.
Now, I can't sit there and talk about Road Rage without also mentioning The Simpsons Hit and Run. It was released just a few short years after Road Rage, and just like Road Rage borrows from the gameplay mechanics of Crazy Taxi, Simpsons Hit and Run does the same thing but with Grand Theft Auto. And believe it or not, it actually does it really surprisingly well.
It'll give you the get up and go you need to do all the pathetic stuff you have to do. Try new improved.
Now, in the early days of Grand Theft Auto, especially Grand Theft Auto 3, I always just found myself in Liberty City, running around the town, beating up on homeless people, stealing people's cars, and running over pedestrians, which sounds a bit disturbing, and it probably is, but it was also one of the things I found myself doing quite a bit here in Hit and Run. Now, like Grand Theft Auto, there's much more to The Simpsons Hit and Run than just running around town beating up on people. And in fact, there's actually a pretty robust story mode here. You actually get to play as each of the Simpsons family characters, each with their own unique set of missions. With the exception, of course, being Maggie here, but it'll actually take you quite a number of hours to play the game to its completion. But, like Road Rage, this is not the best looking game out there, but I don't think that should ever deter you from playing a game, especially in this instance because there are dozens of games out there, especially on the Xbox and PS2 days, that borrowed heavily from the Grand Theft Auto franchise when it boomed with Grand Theft Auto 3, and they did it really poorly, but I feel like this game, because it knows that it's making fun of itself, does it so well, and I think it's definitely a game that you should check out, so it still comes highly recommended.
Spider-Man has been one of my favorite superheroes for as long as I can remember.
Alright, thanks Vintage. For the longest time, I never thought I was going to play another superhero-based video game that could ever surpass my love for the game I'm about to talk about. But fast forward a few years and Batman Arkham Asylum did just that, and its successor, I thought, even did better than Arkham Asylum in many ways. But that still doesn't take away from what I believe to be the single greatest Spider-Man game of all time, that being Spider-Man 2, which is what I'm here to talk about. Now, the Batman Arkham games have been praised for a number of different reasons, and I think one of the most notable is that because the developers at Rocksteady have created a game where you literally feel as if you are Batman in that universe. And surprisingly enough, I feel that the developers at Activision did the exact same thing back when Spider-Man 2 was first released. I mean, I've played a number of different Spider-Man games in my time, and never have I played one to this day where the web-sling mechanic is as smooth and realistic as it was in Spider-Man 2. Though I will admit I haven't played the Amazing Spider-Man 1 or 2 that was recently released for the Xbox 360 and PS3, I've heard Beenox Studios actually did a terrific job improving upon the web-slinging mechanics from Spider-Man 2. Now, just as you would expect, Spider-Man 2 takes place along the same timeline as its movie counterpart, so the vast majority of the game is really just leading up to the big battle with Doc Ock, but I feel like interspersed between all that is just a slew of really interesting and fun story missions that, some of which really never really happened in the film itself, but really kind of just lengthened the experience for the purpose of a video game. For me personally though, I had an absolute blast playing through the story mode because I feel that Spider-Man 2 is the best of the Tobey Maguire trilogy, but don't we all just kind of pretend that Spider-Man 3 never happened anyways? Now again, the story mode in this game is absolutely terrific, and will take you quite a long time to beat, but I feel where this game shines most is in its seemingly endless side missions. I found myself just losing hours upon hours when I first played this game, just doing these random side quests for citizens of New York. I mean, you'll find yourself doing some of the most bizarre things, like fetching balloons for little kids, helping construction workers randomly fall from buildings, which I still to this day don't really understand, because half the time they weren't even actually working on anything. There was just a random guy there with a construction hat on. But in any case, they're a lot of fun, and then in this case, you're helping the local police officers take down random street gangsters. It's crazy, and it's a lot of fun, so I cannot recommend this game enough. And again, the web-slinging mechanic in and of itself is just so addicting to just swing around the city for endless numbers of hours. Although, a quick pro tip, if you find the Empire State Building, which you really can't miss it, don't try jumping off the top of it expecting to survive. Trust me, you won't. Goodness gracious, where do I even begin with this game? Well, for starters, if you haven't seen the deservedly highly acclaimed masterpiece of a trilogy that is The Godfather, shame on you. Go watch it, love it, and then come back and play this game. Now, like the games I spoke about before it, The Godfather has a pretty fun and unique story behind it. I remember distinctly the summer it was released, walking into GameStop with my dad after I'd convinced him to buy the game. And just a quick note, it certainly does earn its M rating, but I mean, come on, you'd expect that from a game that mirrors its movie counterpart. But in any case, I also remember my friend and I losing an entire summer sitting in front of my 15-inch CRT TV in my room, just huddled on my bed, playing this game to absolute death. I mean, we seriously did everything and anything you could have done in this game to its 100% completion. And quite honestly, I have no regrets. It was one of the greatest summers I ever had, because it is that enjoyable of a game, and you can really get that lost in the many things you can do in it. Now, I'm in no way going to sit here and bash the Grand Theft Auto franchise, but for me personally, I feel like it doesn't really do what I expect from an open-world sandbox game, and that's, in addition to an interesting story, which I'm definitely not arguing Grand Theft Auto provides, I just feel that there isn't enough interesting things to do in the city that you're thrown into. I don't care how large the city is and how beautiful it looks. If there aren't interesting things to do in it, I really don't care to play the game, and I just felt like the previous installments in Grand Theft Auto really had nothing more than playing billiards and throwing darts, and to me personally, I just don't find interest in that. I can do that on my own time. But what I feel The Godfather does so incredibly well that distinguishes itself from Grand Theft Auto is that not only does it allow you to freely explore the open world streets of New York City, but it allows you to go into these many shops that you see. You can actually go into these stores and extort the business owners for a cut of their weekly earnings. I mean, what other game like Sleeping Dogs, Grand Theft Auto, The Godfather, and those types of sandbox games can you do that? I just don't see those types of concepts, and at the time I just felt it was so inventive and innovative and unique. So that's one of the main reasons that I just enjoyed The Godfather so much, because it had such incredible replay value, and it had you coming back for more because you were able to do that, and it encouraged you to eventually extort every business owner across the map. And once you were able to do that, you actually became the Don of New York City. And I just felt like that was such an empowering feeling, and it was just so interesting at the time. And again, I just cannot praise this game enough. If you like Grand Theft Auto style sandbox games, or certainly if you're a fan of The Godfather in general, do yourself a tremendous favor. Pick this game up on the Wii, the Xbox 360, PS2, or the original Xbox, and play this excellent game.
Good night, sweetheart.
I had to save the greatest game of them all for absolute last here, that of course being The Warriors. Now what you actually see here is my first copy of Gameinformer magazine, and I vividly remember walking into GameStop years ago and getting this very first issue with The Warriors as its cover story. Little did I know at the time though that it was actually based on a cult classic 80s movie, and I would eventually see it, and I love this movie to this day. But fast forward a few years after the game's release, and wow, after I'd actually secured a copy and got my dad to actually buy me the game, I was absolutely blown away.
Let's get going. We gotta meet up with the new blood. He's waiting for us in the alley.
All right, let's go.
If you've never played The Warriors, you're probably going to be surprised to learn that it was actually published by Rockstar Games. Yeah, the same Rockstar Games that brought you Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, and Bully, and all those other great AAA games. And this becomes pretty evident early on because there are a lot of borrowed game mechanics here. The all too well-known circular map layout in the bottom corner of your screen is definitely present, and a lot of the character models actually look very similar to the early Grand Theft Auto games on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. But I think borrowing from these games isn't necessarily a bad thing because, one, Rockstar published the game, and obviously Rockstar set a precedent with Grand Theft Auto 3 when it was first released, so why not borrow from something that works so well? For the purposes of this video, I'm going to spare you the details about the story for now, but I would encourage you to watch the movie because it really is a terrific 80s film. But in any case, I think you should just know that you're joining a street gang, as you probably could have guessed, called the Warriors. Being that this is a game centered around street gangs doing what, street gangs do best, proving their reputation as toughest and buffest or whatever, it makes sense that this is essentially an open-world beat-em-up brawler. The crazy gang shenanigans you're going to get into really are seemingly endless. I mean, you're going to be getting into crazy fights with all the other gangs, drawing graffiti all over the city, and you're also going to be stealing quite a few car radios. All of which never really seems to get boring because I feel like the story is hemmed together so well, and they're always throwing new and interesting things to do when one thing gets boring or uninteresting. Now the story mode alone is absolutely terrific, and definitely warrants a purchase of the game. But The Warriors also has one of the greatest multiplayer modes I've ever experienced, which basically allows you to spawn into different areas from the game, pitting you against nearly a dozen other dudes in an all-out, free-for-all, beat the snot out of each other fest. My friends and I lost an embarrassing number of hours playing in this mode alone, and as you progress through the story, you're actually going to unlock more characters to use and further arenas to actually go into. It is an absolute blast and definitely will keep you coming back to the game for hours upon hours of beat-em-up craziness. If you can't already tell, The Warriors really is one of my favorite games from the Xbox PS2 era, and while it was reviewed well, it just never really received the attention it deserved, which again is just an absolute shame because I for one had an absolute blast playing it with my buddies, and I have no doubt that if you're a fan of games like Streets of Rage, this game is definitely for you because it's basically a 3D version of that with an excellent story to go alongside it.
Now there ain't but 20,000 police in the whole town. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Alright guys, so those are just a few of my favorite licensed games that are kind of lesser known, perhaps not talked about as much. Now leave a comment in the section below letting me know some of your favorite licensed games, and I might already be covering them or planning to cover them in my future videos in this series. But before I finish this up, I just want to give a tremendous thank you and shout out to a recently met friend of mine here in the YouTube gaming community. He's just recently started his channel, Travis. I'll be posting a link to his channel in the description below. He's actually the one that captured this gameplay footage for me. So again, a tremendous shout out and thank you to him. Please check out his channel because he's already doing just some excellent videos. And some announcements may be on the way depending on how some things work out. We're actually planning on maybe doing some collaboration things as well. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, leave a comment in the section below with some of your favorite licensed games.